What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 9 of building Twitter using UIKit and Google's Firebase. So in this part, we're going to add our first view model and make our first request to Google's Firebase to create our first user. So without further ado, let's just get started. So I'm going to the project hierarchy over there, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to do that by hitting Option, Command, and N, and we can call that folder View Models. In this view model, we're just going to create a new Swift class, and we're going to call that register view model. And basically, the view model is going to handle all the logic for the views itself. So it's not going to be done inside the controller, and that's the beauty of MVVM, which is basically will solve the issue of the massive view controller, which was introduced in the model view controller, or basically, as some developers call, the massive view controller. So right here, I'm just going to create a new class. So basically, that is going to be a final class register view model, and that class is just going to inherit or basically conform to the observable object protocol. So first of all, marking a class as a final, that means we can no longer inherit from that class. And by conforming to the observable object, we can hold publishers, or basically a published variables, which is going to notify the views which we're going to subscribe for those publishers whenever a new change occurs to them. So you may find that this is really difficult at first, but trust me, the process is really easy. We just need to make a publishers, or basically variables that declares that they have been changed, and basically pass those information to the views which are going to subscribe to them. So it's basically like a TV channel that you subscribe for, and basically whenever a new show that is going to be aired on that channel, you're going to receive that show on your TV. So just do that. So first of all, I'm just going to initialize a new published variable over here. I'm just gonna call that email, and that is going to be an optional string. Also a new published variable, and that's going to be called password, optional string as well. And also I'm just going to initialize the third one, which is going to be a published variable as well, and I'm gonna call that is registration form valid, and that's going to be a bool. And for starters, that is going to be a false. So basically, we just need to prevent users from creating a new account, or basically tapping on the button without actually providing a valid email format and a password. So I'm going to create a new function over here. I'm going to call that function validate registration form. And basically inside that function, I'm just going to make sure that the email which the user provided and the password as well is both correct. In this case, I'm just going to flip this is registration form valid variable to true. Alright, so first of all, we just need to bind our text fields to those two published variables, and also we're just going to bind our create account button to this published variable. So let's just do that. So I'm just going to go to the register view controller over here, and basically the controller itself owns the view model. So let me just do that. So private var view model, and that is going to be register view model. I'm just going to create a new function down there. So basically this function is going to be called bind views. Inside this function, I'm just going to add some targets for this text field. So email text field dot add target, that's going to be self selector did change email field, which we're going to create right now. And here I'm just going to change, instead of touch up inside, I'm just gonna need to listen for editing changed. Okay, and as you can see here, whenever you tap on this, you can see some Xcode helping guides, and as you can see here, a touch making and editing change in a text field object. Okay, so let's create this function. So here, Objective-C private func, and we're just going to copy this name. So basically, whenever the value of the email text field change, we just need to set that variable, or basically that value, to our published variable of the view model. So let me just do that. So view model dot email, and this is going to be set to email text field dot text. Okay, we just need to do the same thing with the password text field. So password text field dot add target self selector did change password field. Okay, and here it's going to be everything changed, and over here I'm just going to create a new function. So objective C private func did change password field, and inside this function we're just going to set the password to the password value, or basically the password text field value. So view model dot password, and that is going to be password text field dot text. Okay, so right now once we change our email and the password, we need to check if the form is valid. So right here I'm just going to say view model dot validate registration form, and here as well I'm just going to call the same function. So basically we're just going to do the same thing, either we change either the password or the email. Okay, so right here whenever our view is being initialized, I'm just going to say basically I need to have the create button disabled. So let me just do this right here. So whenever we initialize this button, I'm just going to say button dot is enabled, and I'm gonna set that to false. Alright, so basically let's just build and run this, and let's verify that the button right now is disabled and we cannot tap on this button. So I'm just gonna wait for my simulator to run, and as you can see here, build succeeded. And let's just create account, and as you can see here, the create account button is actually disabled. We cannot tap cancel, basically we cannot tap on it for now. And also, as you can see here, whenever we change the password, nothing changed. Whenever we change the email as well, nothing gets changed. Okay, basically I just found something that it's really important to add so that you can maintain the user experience. So whenever we initialize our view over here, we just need to set a view dot add gesture recognizer, and here I'm just going to say UI tap gesture recognizer. I'm just going to initialize that, set the target to self, and here in action I'm just going to create a new function, did tab outside, or basically did tap to dismiss. I'm going to create this function. So basically whenever our user taps outside any text field, I need to dismiss the keyboard. So objective C private func did tap to dismiss, and over here we can say view dot end editing, and we're just going to force that to true. Let's build and run, and let's see that this is working. Alright, so let's just create a new account over here, and whenever we have our keyboard over there, whenever we tap outside those text fields here on the view itself, as you can see here, the keyboard gets dismissed. Alright, so right now we just need to verify that the user has entered a valid email. So how we can do this? Easy, using regex. And now I'm not memorizing any of those regex. We are going to find that together on basically Google right now. So you can just go to Google and type iOS Swift email validation regex, and I just opened the first one over here. Basically this is an Objective-C. We can just scroll down over there, and as you can see here, there's a function that you can actually use to make sure that the email is actually valid. So as you can see here, the regex makes sure that something is followed by an @ and this @ is going to follow by the provider name, and this provider name should be followed with a dot, and after that is going to be the domain, which is going to be consisted of 2 to 64 characters. So basically like .com or .net, or actually .co, which is CO, and that is valid as well. So we just don't need to dive into this regex over here, but we can simply copy this right to our code over here. Let me just go to my register view model, and I'm just going to paste that function as it is right here. So over here I'm just going to make sure that the user has entered both a valid email and a valid password. For me, a valid password is basically, I'm just going to check for the count of the password. I'm gonna make sure that the count of the password is going to be an 8 or higher than 8. Alright, so over here we're just going to return the state of the validation form directly to alter this value over here. So let me just type is registration form valid, and we're going to assign the value of basically this statement, which is going to be is valid email. We're going to pass the email, and using the AND operator over here, that makes sure that in order for this to be true, both this and the statement we're going to write over here must be true in order for this to be true again. So how can we do this? Easy. Password.count, and we're just going to make sure that this is greater or equals 8. So basically, whenever we get a true from here and a true from there, which is basically it's going to verify if our email is valid based on that regex, and also that our password is 8 characters or higher, this is going to return true, and basically this is going to publish its news. Alright, so basically we're just going to get a new error over here because email and the password in this moment are optionals, so we just need to check if they are not optionals. So guard let email equal email, let password equal password, else we are just going to alter this is registration form valid, that is going to stay false, and we're just going to return. We just don't need to check for the email and the password if basically the user did not enter any email or password at this point. So we get our errors gone away from Xcode. Thank you for this. And basically let's just go to the register view controller over here, and let's bind the state of the validation or basically the state of the form, registration form, to our create an account button. So over here I'm just going to bind my views over there, and I'm just going to say view model dot is registration form valid, but basically this is the normal variable. I don't need this, I need the publisher itself. Basically we just going to prefix this with the $, and we can just type is registration form valid. So basically whenever we prefix our variable name with the $sign over here, basically we are talking about the publisher itself, and we can actually see our methods that we're going to use so that we can get this new state. So over here I'm just going to say sync, and basically I'm interested in receive value. So basically this is like the channel that the subscriber sees the subscription on. I know that might seem a little bit intimidating at first, but basically this is the channel on which we receive our new value. So we can say for here week self, so I don't want to create any retain cycles over here, and basically I'm just going to say basically validation, okay, state. I'm just going to call that state basically this is going to be my validation state, which we are going to get from here is registration form valid. So basically we're going to get our state over here, and let's reference our button. So self week self register button dot is enabled, and basically we're just going to set that to our validation state. So basically this is the way that we are going to bind our views with our view model. Okay, so right now there's only one last step that we need to do. Basically we just need to store our subscription somewhere. Okay, so basically let's just import combine over here, and down there I'm just going to set private var subscriptions, and this is going to be a set of any cancellables, which is basically our subscription here. So basically at this moment it's going to be an empty set for now, and over here after this curly brace I'm just going to hit dot store, basically store in, and as you can see here we can store this into our subscriptions, and this ampersand sign, that means we are referencing this variable using its reference. So kind of like a pointer in a C or C++ programming language if you have any background for this. Alright, so before we hit build and run this, we just need to call this function to make sure everything is working correctly. So add this bind views into our view.load function, and then hit Command R to build our project, and I believe we will get no errors so far at this point. So yeah, build succeeded, and let's verify that. So create account. Okay, so email, I'm just going to write a valid email for now. As you can see here, this is a valid format for this. And for the password, please focus on this create account button. I'm just going to count an 8 characters for you, and whenever we hit the 8, I just need you to focus really on this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and whenever I type the 8th character, you can see here it's now active. We can really create account from this point, and whenever I mess up anything in here, so this is still a valid email. Whenever I remove another character, you can see here it's no longer activated. So basically, this is the beauty of MVVM. You can just have your view model handle the logic, and basically, on the other hand, the views itself knows nothing about the view model. Only the controller is the one responsible for connecting the view to the view model itself. And as you can see here, basically, you don't need to call any functions. It's there by default. So this is a valid email. Whenever I remove a password from here, this is no longer activated. So MVVM all the way, guys. MVVM is really smart decision to use for your application. So right now we just need to take this email and this password and actually create a new account on Google's Firebase. So just do this. So let me create a new folder over here. So let me just go to my project hierarchy, Option Command N for the new folder shortcut, and I'm just gonna call that folder networking. Inside that folder, I'm just going to create a new Swift file. So Command N, new Swift file, and I'm gonna call this auth manager. So our auth manager is going to be responsible for creating our users inside our app. So over here, I'm just going to import few stuff. So import Firebase auth combine Swift. So over here, let me just create a new singleton class. So class auth manager, and basically this class is going to be a singleton class. That means only one instance of this class is going to be located inside our memory. So with this instance, we can access from anywhere inside our project, and basically only one instance is going to handle all the authentication process. So static let shared. So basically this is going to be an instance of the class itself, and using the word static, that means only this instance is going to be found one time in the computer's memory, or basically the mobile memory for now. So I'm just going to create a new function over here. Okay, so let me just create this function, and let me call that register user with email, which is going to be a string, and a password, which is going to be a string as well. Okay, and this function should return any publisher, which is basically we need to import combine for it. So import combine, and over here we can specify the return of this function, which is going to be any publisher, and this publisher is going to return either one of the two things. Either it returns a user, which is a Google's Firebase user. We're just going to make our own user, but in the future. And in case of error, it just returns an error. So basically, as this view model's published variables, this is considered to be a publisher. We just need to return a publisher as well. So this publisher, whenever it creates a new user successfully, it's just going to publish this user, and we're going to subscribe for this publisher to get the user value. And in case of failure, we're just going to get an error values. Alright, so for creating user, it's pretty simple. First of all, we're going to type auth.auth dot create user, and basically we're just going to choose the first one that returns a future. Future is basically a type of publishers, but for this function we are returning at any publisher anyway. So we're going to get this one and then convert this publisher to any publisher so that we can listen for it anywhere without knowing the specific or basically how the function works itself. So pass here the email and your password, and over here we can just map our return of this function. So this function returns either one of the two things, auth data result or basically an error. So we can type a key path to our user. So basically we are mapping the result of create user to only the user, and after this we can just erase our publisher to any publisher. So basically we can just return that, and this confirms with the signature of the function over here. As you can see here, we're no longer getting any errors, and you can see how easy is that. So basically in just 2 lines I have created my user and email, password. I just got the user from basically the return of the function. I'm only interested in the user, I'm not interested in the error for now, and I'm just erasing my publisher to conform with this. So basically we return either user or error, or we can just do this to conform to our any publisher over here. I know that this might sound a little bit difficult at first, but trust me, combine was introduced to take a lot of work off your shoulders. So how we can create this right now? So let me just go to my register view model, and I'm going to create a new function over here, create user with email string and a password, which is going to be a string as well. And from here I'm just going to reference this static or basically singleton class using its name, so auth manager dot shared. So this instance has access to all of this functions, which is basically the registered user for now. And here I'm just going to set registered user with the email and the password. And as you remember, this function itself returns a publisher in which we can subscribe to. So basically we're just going to make the same dance that we did here in the register view controller. We're going to add a cancelable set, and also we're just going to subscribe or listen for the changes that we get from this user or basically this function. Alright, so over here we're just going to create a new published variable. So published var user, and that is going to be of a type user. Okay, and let's just import Firebase over here because user is part of the Firebase SDK. So whenever we subscribe to this, so sync, the completion that we get could be actually an error or basically a completion of a success as well. So we can listen for our errors over here. Alright, so as you can see here, we're interested in the user, which is basically the received value over here. So basically just type here, let's write underscore for now, we're not interested in that. So basically if we got our user here, basically we're just gonna mark this sync operator over here, weak self. Okay, weak self in the received value, and over here we're just going to reference our user over here, and we are going to set our user from here. So if we manage to create a new user for real, Firebase is going to give us the object for the user. Whenever they get our user over here, we're just going to assign that to our published variable, which is user over here, which we're going to listen to inside our register view controller. And over here we can just simply to get this error away, we need to store this subscription model inside a cancelable set. So over here I'm just going to type private var, and I'm also going to import combine over here, combine. Okay, so private var subscriptions, and that is going to be a set of any cancelables. Okay, any cancelable, and that's going to be an empty for now. And once we get this done, we can just store that subscription into our subscriptions set. Okay, let's go back to our register view control over here. Whenever we set this views, we also want to set the view itself, which is basically inside the navigation controller that we have. So let me just type view model dot user dot sync. We're just going to receive the value over here. And as you can see here, since this user is an optional, so that means if the registration process did not went successfully, we're just going to receive a nil over here. So we can take this user object, which is basically also we're going to pass a weak self, so we make sure that we don't get any retain cycles. We're just going to store that as well in our subscription models. As you can see here, adding more and more bindings seems a lot easier than the first time, because in the first time we just need to add our new set and all of that, but for now the subscription set is already here. So basically we're just binding this view to our view model. So right now I'm just gonna keep it simple for now. So let's type print user, and for now let me just hit build and run, and let me see what we get so far. So Command R, and let's see, we can just ignore this because this is just for the weak self that's not gonna be used until this moment. So let's just see if that is working. So create account, email, let's just type a new email over here, and here I'm just going to enter a valid password, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to create account. So at this moment I think we forgot actually to hit create account. So over here we just need to add a new target. So let me just go down there. So register button.add target self selector did tap register, and here did tap register. And over here we can just use the touch up inside. Let me just create this function really quick. So Objective-C private and did tap register is the name of that function. And inside that function, I'm just gonna set the view model dot register, or basically create user. We messed up actually with this function. So let's just go to this function. So basically we no longer need to add this email and a password inside this function, because we actually have those values over here anyway. So over here we can just remove these email and the password from the function itself, and over here we can just guard let email equal email, the same thing that we've done in the validation function. Let password equals password, and here you make sure basically that you are using a valid email and a password, because those emails already have been checked with this function, with the validation and the binding that we did earlier this episode. So over here I'm just going to add func over here because I think it was missing, and here I'm just gonna call create user without anything else, without passing any text, without passing any email or password or anything like this. So it's really clean. Whenever we tap register, we create user. So this function even has no idea about the email and the password that we're going to be using. So that's the beauty of MVVM. So let's just hit build and run, and let me see what we get so far. Over here I'm just gonna go to console.firebase.google. Let me just hit Twitter clone over here, and here I'm just going to open the authentication from our dashboard. And whenever we create a new email successfully, this email should be populated in this list, which has no user for this project yet label shown right now. So I'm hoping everything's gonna work correctly. So as you can see here, create account, email, I'm just going to add a valid email, which is going to be this, and this password is going to be 1234567, and whenever I type 8, as you can see here, create account. And for now, nothing appears on the screen. That's normal. And let's just go to Xcode, and as you can see here, we get user successfully. It's an optional user. That's the one that we get on this line. And whenever we basically refresh our dashboard screen, we can find our email is created successfully, as over here, with the correct email, with the providers created at, signed in at, and the normally unique identifier for our user generated by Google's Firebase. So that is awesome. At this point, we have finally reached a point that we have created a user. So that's it for this tutorial. So if you enjoyed what you saw so far, please hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean a lot to me. So once again, that was Amr.